Welcome to the Bad Boss Journal, the dope podcast where you can anonymously say exactly what you think about your bad boss, toxic work environment, and find out how to handle
it. Welcome to another episode of the Bad Boss Journal. My name is Michelle.
And I'm Ava.
So last week we did an episode on work-life balance, and we talked about a variety of things related to work-life balance, I think. And at that point in time, I was juggling, or I don't like using the word juggling, but I was balancing, if you will.
Yeah. Yes.
Let's rephrase that. I was balancing a number of jobs. I believe it was like 6 or 7. And then we were talking also about how I was going to focus on some self-care. And then Ava, you were talking about your lack of work-life balance and some things you wanted to implement to make sure that you were taking care of yourself as well.
True, because I have atrocious work-life balance and need structure. So I guess we should check in on what our progress was.
Yes. Tell me everything.
My progress sucked. So I have not created any structure and realized that I have late old age procrastination. That is some unknown reason that I haven't tapped into.
Okay.
Which made me actually think, coming into this episode, think about all of the things that you talked about, that in terms of having a morning routine, scheduling time block for each of your work projects and your personal time, and how I need to do that more to prevent my procrastination.
Yeah. And I think that's okay. I think, like they always say, the first step is acknowledging that there is an issue. And it can take years to get to that goal of what you want as your ideal work life balance, right? Like for me, this is like the amount of streamlining and optimization that I have enforced into my life is from over, I'm trying to count now, 10 years in the making. 10 years when I actively started to realize, oh, there is a way to streamline things. There is a way to be more efficient with my time. And it took little steps, little steps, little steps. And then, I was almost forced to really put it into gear. So I guess for the past 5 years, I've been pretty good with my work life balance. Like, better than most, but not as great as some, right? Like,
I think we always, right, whatever we're working on, we always see that, oh, that could be improved. So I think that's normal.
Right. And I think it's okay. I think ultimately it's about, like, even your late onset procrastination you're talking about. I think figuring out and unpacking that will help you achieve more self-growth, right? Like, and I think that's what life is really about. Like, I think, yes, it's about, following what feels good for you and being kind and compassionate and all those things, right? That we're expected to be, but also just becoming a better version of ourselves, right? I will say that while I have been keeping with my structure and routine, I am still like, I do not feel that ideal work life balance for me, because at this point, I'm not really trying to, I'm in like a survival mode in terms of my time management. I'm doing everything that I can not to get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But, and I am still, like, to be fair though, like, to be kinder to myself, because we're all our worst critics sometimes.
Yeah.
But, I purposely have scheduled times to do things for myself, right? Even yesterday on a whim, I took the children and took my husband, and I was like, let's go. And we went to this like huge indoor gaming facility. It's kind of like, it's in between, the age range is in between like Chuck E. Cheese and then Dave and Buster's. It's like, it's like for the school age kids. So yeah, we had a blast. And what's funny is I took everybody there, everybody had a blast. And I sat there, just sitting at the eat, because they have a restaurant in there too.
Yeah.
And I sat at the restaurant table, and I did a little bit of work, but I just like hung out doing nothing. And I should have played some games, but like my eyeballs hurt just from staring at stuff all day. So, like trying to create some fun
Yeah,
for the family,
yeah,
so that they know that I'm not just always working.
yeah. And spontaneity, that's like
Exactly.
refreshing because if you're scheduling things all the time, it can sometimes, even if it's scheduled self-care time, it can seem stale. So the
Yeah.
idea that you spontaneously did something as a family and just took that time, I think is really important.
Yeah. I do think it helped a lot, like I mean, the kids weren't cranky. I mean, I'm really lucky though. I have children who are incredibly understanding and incredibly patient. I mean, to the point that I'm like, this is unreal.
Yeah.
But I feel like at the same time, I try to be really mindful not to take that, take advantage of that. I really do try to focus on, making sure that they feel loved, they feel seen, and all that stuff. But yeah, it was really fun. I'm trying to continue to work on going to the gym today. So normally I try to go around noon,
Hmm.
but today I woke up at 4 a.m.
Well,
just on my own.
we'll do
um,
that
at,
soon.
What's funny is the older I get, during the winter time,
Hmm.
I have a different sleep schedule. Do you have that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, as long as I go to sleep between the 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. range, I'll wake up between 4 and 5. It's so weird.
Yeah, I do tend to wake up earlier in the winter.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I woke up at 4 and then I was like, you know what? I want to squeeze in a nap during the day because I am feeling really run down. And so I just sucked it up, went to the gym. I literally did like maybe 10 minutes of walking fast on the treadmill
Yeah.
and then some like not real stretches and then called it a day. And I showered, but still it was like an hour of my time. I took like a really long shower and I was just like done.
That's good though. I mean, I- so the closest I got was I downloaded the Couch to 5K app and I installed it. I haven't logged onto it. So that's as close as I got.
Hey, you downloaded it. Baby steps. Baby steps. I will say, yeah. Do you feel like you know what your ideal work life balance is? I think a lot of times we talk about it so much, but I feel like if we all had a vision of what our work life balance would be, we could start to create more actionable steps to get to that place.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what it looks like. I know ideally it's more focused on, and Michelle, you and I have talked about this off air before, is
Mm-hmm.
not being busy but being purposeful. Um,
Yes.
so I kind of think about it like, so I always joke that I'm like, I wonder about those Folgers coffee commercials where the people wake up leisurely in their robes, the sun's out, they can have a cup of coffee at home, and then allegedly they go to work the rest of the day. Who knows?
Allegedly. I love that.
Because for most of us, I think, we wake up when it's dark, we get dressed, take care of our families, and we're out the door before this, sunrise happens.
Oh,
Um,
right. Yeah.
so, I kind of idealize that, I'll have a life where I can, wake up with the sunrise and take my time to do whatever work I have to do. But also, I think sometimes we live for work instead of work
Mm,
to have lives that are not
right.
connected to that.
Hmm.
And so I think that's part of my ideal.
That's 100% true. I've noticed that. So when I went to Europe, Paris specifically, it was like a sibling trip. So me, my brother and sister,
Yeah.
and my brother works for this really big luxury brand company that is, that was started in Paris. So he has connections there, and we met with some of his old coworkers, and they treated us to lunch. And that is when I truly understood the difference between the American mindset of work and Europe in general,
Hmm.
you know? And it's funny because I feel like it's almost like a capitalism thing because, in our country, we are taught like, oh, you want to do a job that you love,
Hmm.
like you want to be really good at it. You want to love what you do. And I believe they do that because they want you to just be a workhorse and
Hmm.
continue to keep doing that thing and not think about it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in Paris, I was talking to like multiple people there and they were like, oh, yeah, I mean, I like what I do, but ultimately, it's about, making enough money so that I can do what I want.
Yeah. Exactly.
And the thing is, they create very specific boundaries that are also kept by the companies. Like the companies don't expect you to be working over the weekend unless you're actively a person who works on the weekend. Like it's all about doing enough to get paid for the job you just did so you can have a life.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. So I think on a trip to Argentina, I saw something similar because every afternoon I would see that there were hundreds of people at the parks, having picnics. And this was on a weekday. So it was kind of strange to me. And so I was
Mhm.
asking people questions, and they're like, yeah, we don't focus on like working ourselves to the bone. We work, and then when you're off, you're off. And so,
Yeah.
you don't spend, late in the night working. You get off early afternoon and you spend that time with your family, and it's typically in the parks and picnics and being outside. And so really it's a different mindset,
Yeah.
because in the US we would think, oh well, if we saw had a coworker who left at 3 or something to go have a picnic with his family, we'd be like, oh, that
Mhm.
guy doesn't really care about his job, or
Right.
isn't.
Or he's lazy,
Yeah.
doesn't care. Like there's just so much with that. And I mean, now we're talking about this, like all these memories are flooding back. When I used to work retail, you would get like 15, 20 minutes. So I would constantly get indigestion and get sick because I was trying to shove food in my mouth.
Yeah.
Also, they wouldn't let us drink water on the floor in the case there was a spill. And I was pregnant at one point, like 6, 7 months pregnant. Couldn't drink water for hours unless I literally would have to like run to the faucet and then run back. And the thing is, you can't even leave your station depending on, where you are in the department.
Crazy.
And that's the thing. Like, people are always so hyper focused on other countries or how bad their workers. I'm like, I don't think we're any better. Just the
No.
expectation that we put on people, and we're basically just, you know, a factory farm of
Mhm.
humans to go through in a sense. And
Yeah.
yeah, like the more I start to unpack it, I'm like, good grief, why is it the way it is? And maybe that's also why there's this huge rush with that whole, what do they call it? The great
Oh,
resignation
yes.
or something,
Yes.
resign, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. Like it's funny because I know people who have actively told me that they thought people were being so lazy for not wanting to go back to work.
Yeah.
Um, Meanwhile, they don't have the jobs that these people did. I did, though. And I remember having to hustle so much to make a fifth, a tenth of what you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
of what other people make. And and also just being treated so poorly half the time, or, there's no such thing as like OSHA. Like, yes, there is, and yet there isn't. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe, and you just like, I think, created the window, is that people were living to work and didn't have their time to reflect
Hmm.
upon what they're actually experiencing and going through for what they consider valuable. And
Right.
I think the pandemic kind of made people slow down or take a pause and really reflect and go, I'm doing what? And how does that balance up with what I want to achieve in my life and with my family and friends, etc., and is it worth it?
Right. Yeah. And also, like, when you have that type of time, you finally get to do those things that you wanted to do in terms of even education.
Yeah.
Because, there are a plethora of free programs that you can get to, get a new job that is virtual or online. And I feel like people were able to finally tap into that. Because if you are having to work double shifts or multiple jobs, like even if you could find the time to learn that, you have to have so much grit and tenacity to get
Yeah.
past those, you know, hurdles. Because it is exhausting to live, just paycheck to paycheck to begin with, and then having to find that time to do that. So
Yeah.
I feel like it was one of those times where people were like, oh, I can actually make money on this, like YouTube a couple of videos, and they're like, oh, I can learn how to crypto trade. I can, you know what I mean? Like I can learn how to buy and sell stocks. I can, set up a drop shipping business.
Right.
Like there's so many things that you can do online now.
Yeah, I think we were joking before how I've been watching the Christmas cookie challenge, which is another way people have learned like in the how to make designer cookies and the
Right.
business. But I think that was part of like the beginning of the pandemic. People started making bread, and then there was this whole like supply demand issue
Yeah.
for sourdough. Um,
Mhm.
People sort of explored that market and that hobby as a new and that hobby turned into, oh, this is something I love to do for work versus
Right.
what I was doing before.
Yeah. I have noticed that there's been a lot more businesses that have popped up in our area as well. Even storefronts. Like I didn't think there would be that many storefronts that would open up, and yet they did.
Yeah.
So yes, while a lot of businesses shut down, I don't think those people just shut down and went away forever. Like
Right.
they repackaged, refigured everything out, and they're coming back.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I forget what the phrasing is, but like it's like ingenuity or creativity is the key to creativity. I'm getting the phrase all incorrect. But basically like when you don't have anything in the
Hmm.
void, that's when creativity sparks. So
Mm,
in this sort of, slow down period, people got started thinking about new ideas and new ways of doing everything.
love that. I have a parent coach friend who actually said that about parenting, about how we're so focused on making sure our kids have something to do
Mm,
constantly. Like, and I mean, it relates to so much like what you just said, because she actually writes for a newspaper in my, where I live. And people were talking about during the summer, like, I should be doing this, putting my kids in camp with that and all that. And she was like, why are you so obsessed with keeping your children busy?
mm,
Like, teach them to be bored. Like, it's okay to be bored.
yeah,
They aren't going to, like, pay attention to them. They won't get into trouble. Like, that's how they learn to use their imagination.
right.
That's how they're going to move out of just this, constant, like, ask and demand type thing, like just that instant gratification, too.
Yeah.
And I mean, I may be taking that advice a little bit too hard, because we only did like one thing for the children in terms of like an activity.
Yeah.
Like all of my friends have their children in gymnastics and taekwondo and art program, music program, ballet, all of these things, and I'm like, you guys can do archery, right? And then we did archery. That was
Yeah.
it.
No,
Like we didn't do anything.
but I don't think that's bad. Like, I mean, I'm thinking about when I grew up. When I grew up, and I've actually commented. I don't have kids, but to my friends is that as parents, I'm like, I don't know how you do it because kids have more activities than adults, and I'm like,
Hmm.
and like, you're getting off work and you're having to take this kid to gymnastics, this kid to music, and then your weekends are full of driving them to like this game or performance. Um, and I remember when I was a kid, we didn't have all that. Like, if you had an
Hmm.
extra activity, you might have hopped a ride with another kid's, family, or you had to figure out how to get there yourself. But there's a lot of board time, and
Hmm.
that's when you you fall back on the other things that your parents taught you. So like going to the library, or you made up games that like freeze tag that like you don't actually
Right.
need any equipment for, and you can do it in a small area, but your mind just opens up with trying to figure out what to keep things interesting.
Right. I feel like I kind of had half half, because because my parents owned their own businesses. So during the summer, they would put us into these summer camps where we would be there all day, and we learned so many things. I mean, I really enjoyed it as a kid. We did
Yeah.
horseback riding, archery, like martial art, everything was included
Mhm.
in this course because I mean it was run by a Korean company, and
Yeah.
Koreans are very like East Asians are
Yeah.
very obsessed
Yeah.
with, maintaining high standards for everything. However, like just day to day during school time, yeah, we would have to figure out our own thing, and we would meet neighbors and befriend people like kids, and I learned how to rollerblade
Yeah.
because I found these kids who were like rollerblading, and I was like, I want to learn that.
Yeah.
And I asked my parents to buy me rollerblades, and they did, and I was able to learn how to use those. And like there were all these little like things that we used to do to keep our time. And I remember just reading nonstop.
Yeah.
Now trying to make my children read. I mean, my daughter reads like me. Like it's amazing. My boys, it's like pulling teeth. You would be thinking that I'm telling them, go sit in this chair. I'm going to pull all your teeth back one by one. Like they hate it. And I'm like, do you have dyslexia? Do we need to get you tested? Like, what is going on? you know? Um,
Yeah.
and I know people say like, oh, whatever, it's okay. I'm like, I still have a bit of that like Asian tiger mom.
Yeah.
Like I'm very loose with that, but there are certain very tiny things that I hold on to, which is that my children should enjoy reading.
Yeah.
Like you can't force that. So I'm like, I'm hoping one day it'll click. I think it's just that one book, like you
Yeah.
just get that one book. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, in terms of my ideal work life balance, I would say I would love to live like a Parisian. During the second half of the pandemic, or like maybe even just over this past summer, I noticed that my body starts to slowly shut down between the hours of like 1 and 3 p.m.
Mhm.
And during the summertime, my jobs, like, I mean, I had only a couple of jobs, but they were like really low maintenance. And so I would have these, I was kind of like, I spent the past summer just like fine tuning and trying to listen to my body because, like, one of my issues is that I can't seem to like listen to my body intuitively, like some of, the people I know. Um,
I'm the same way.
are you? Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's because we get so hyper focused on the job at hand that we really have to step back to really hone in on what's going on with us.
Yeah.
It's almost like tunnel vision, and then everything else kind of dissipates to the background until it's too late and then it yells at you,
Yeah.
you know? So I was able to really fine tune and listen to my body, and I noticed that, yeah, I needed to take naps. And I also played around with the nap times too because I was working virtually. And so now, anytime I have to wake up early, like during the winter time, if I have to wake up, I mean, if my body's naturally wanting to wake up at 4, the goal is to try to take a nap around like noon or 1,
Mhm.
and I do intermittent fasting these days, or at least try to, because of my, condition I have, with my whatever, I have an issue with carbs and stuff. So, yeah, like I did that today. Today was one of the first days in the past 3 weeks that I actually had some downtime because I was waiting on my boss to give me answers on things, and there was no reply back on anything. I was like, okay, then. Well, I've been working since 6 a.m.
Yeah.
It's 11. I think I can forego working more, And so, yeah, I took a nap, and it was just enough to get me to the evening.
Yeah. That's
I don't know if
awesome.
that's reasonable every day, but that would be ideal. Like work life balance is like being able to shut off. I don't know. I guess for me, the best with work, because like I feel like right now I'm pretty good at trying to make sure, I spend time with my kids and everything like that. But it's ultimately about taking care of my actual body, where it's like maybe being able to implement naps so that they're more regular, and then learning to shut off.
Mm. Yeah.
I'm so bad at that. Like once I start going, I can't stop.
Yeah. I get honed in, and you're like, and I want to like, if there's got a task I have to do, like I want to finish that
Yeah.
task before I move on to the next one.
Yeah. And then it's like one less thing to have on your plate, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Cause you're right. Cause I love crossing things off my to-do list.
Yes. It feels like the mental load is lifting because I don't know if you do this, but I do brain dumps all the time.
Yeah.
And it does help with alleviating the pressure and the list of crap that's going on in my head. However, when I see it on a piece of paper and nothing's been done,
Yes. It's
it's
frustrating.
annoying. It's annoying. I want it over and done with. Like, why can't we move on? I think you and I have some similar problems we need to address over time.
Yes, we should see the same therapist.
Well, if you have a good one and they do virtual, I am all for trying them out.
I don't have any recommendations right
Okay, so that's on your list then.
Yeah.
Create a morning routine, evening routine,
Yeah.
find a therapist
Find a therapist. Stop
who is ideally
procrastinating.
virtual. All right, well, I think that about wraps it up for this week's episode. We'd love to hear what your ideal work life balance is and if you found ways to create efficiency and streamline your time so that you are working on self-care. I think those are all good things, important things to strive for.
Yeah. And even harder to accomplish when you're dealing with a bad boss. So
Yes,
yeah, so any tricks of the trade, we are got both ears, all ears open.
definitely. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll check back in with you next week.
See you next time.
Bye. Do you have a bad boss experience you'd like to share with us? Visit our website, thebadbossjournal.com, to submit your story. You can also support our show by checking out our merch and more on our website. Thank you so much for listening to the Bad Boss Journal.